Bruchim Habayim. This shiur will focus specifically on Erev Pesach Shechalias b'Shabbos. This shiur will be recorded. If you missed something, it will be available on YouTube. If you don't have access to YouTube, you may email me privately and I could send you a link to a Dropbox. The shiur will be an hour long. At the end of the shiur, there will be a limited time given for questions. The questions are asked to be specifically asked on topic, which means only questions that pertain to Erev Pesach Shechalias b'Shabbos. Any other questions should not be asked on this forum. We have a limited amount of time. We won't be able to address all the questions. We hope you understand. Without further ado, I would like to ask Rabbi Braun, from the Beis Din of Crown Heights, to please share with us the Halakhas of Erev Pesach Shechalias b'Shabbos.
Thank you. So as Rabbi Dagan just mentioned, Pesach is a very, very thorough subject, and there's a lot of stuff that we have to cover about Pesach, but we're going to be focusing this year specifically about the unique calendar setup of this year, where Erev Pesach falls out on Shabbos, which has its own set of Halakhas, and we'll try to do whatever we can within the 60 minutes that we have. I will mention that the Rebbe has specifically requested that in a year where Erev Pesach falls out on Shabbos, that we should publicize the Halakhas as far as possible in writing, in drushes. The Rebbe went and edited an English publication specifically with all the Halakhas about Erev Pesach that falls out on Shabbos. We have, the Eibush has given us the schus, because the Eibush wants us to have more Torah mitzvahs. He set up Erev Pesach to fall out on Shabbos so she would have more Halakhas and more to learn about. The Rebbe even asked we should have Tzilis Hashem get-togethers where we teach the children that there's a new front as soldiers in the army of Hashem. They know that this year there's a new front that opened up and they have to fight this front in the area of Erev Pesach falling out on Shabbos. This is something that we can't wait till Shabbos comes, because on Shabbos you can't make any phone calls. You can't call a Rav and ask a shayla, and we don't know in advance what kind of shaylas are going to come up. So we'll need to know, get ourselves prepared as much as possible. We could do it. We will do it. We just want to make sure that we know how to do it. The setup of Erev Pesach on Shabbos is something very rare. The next time we're going to be having it is in 4 years from now. The next time after that is going to be in the year Taf Hey. Mirza Hashem will all live to them, the year 2045. The last time we had Erev Pesach on Shabbos was Tafshin Samach. Some of us still remember it, 13 years ago. The very first time in history where Erev Pesach was on Shabbos was when the second year when Yidden came out of Mitzrayim, the year when the Mishkan was established, and indeed this year we're going through the Nasim throughout the month of Nisan. We say every day the Nasi of that day corresponds to how was the year when the Mishkan was established, and it's also the same setup as the year when Yidden came into Eretz Yisrael, which is known as Pesach Gilgal. Sfarim tell us that a year where Erev Pesach falls on Shabbos, it's a more opportune time for Mashiach to come. Let's just go through a number of things that are different this year because of this setup. The Shabbos Hagadol Drasha that the Rav normally gives in Erev Pesach, he will not say on Shabbos, Erev Pesach, because it's a bit too late. People have to know the Halakhas, and therefore it will be this coming Shabbos the week before. The fast of the firstborn is not on Shabbos. It's pushed earlier, and it's on the Thursday before Shabbos. Instead of on Yud Daled Nisan, it's on Yud Beis Nisan. The sale of chametz is done earlier. People go to the Rav as early as possible. In fact, we're encouraged to go as early as possible. Always, especially this year, where the Rav is going to be selling it earlier. And on Friday, Yud Gimel Nisan, instead of Yud Daled Nisan, is when the Rav is going to be selling the chametz to the Goy. The Bedikas chametz is also done a night earlier. Instead of doing it on Erev Pesach Friday night, the night of Yud Daled Nisan, it's going to be done on Thursday night. The burning chametz is going to be done earlier. It's going to be done on Friday, Yud Gimel Nisan. The beer chametz will be done earlier, but it's a bit of an interesting type of beer chametz. We destroy everything on Friday by the time of beer chametz, and we leave over some stuff to eat over Shabbos. And when we finish our Shabbos meals, we have a second beer chametz on Shabbos, the time of beer chametz on Shabbos. The Bitul chametz is done earlier as well. We do twice Bitul chametz this year. one time after Bedika, like every year, but it's a day earlier, it's Thursday night. When we burn the chametz, we're not going to nullify the chametz. We're not going to say the Kol Chamira like we do every year. And instead, we're going to say the Kol Chamira on Shabbos before the time the Zman Bir. And of course, the whole Shabbos setup is totally different. We have an early Shachris, an early Suda, and the Suda is primarily Pesach foods and just a tiny bit of chametz for challah that we need on Shabbos. That's the general overview of the various different halachas. Already over 100 years ago, there was a Rav that put out a sefer for Erev Pesach b'Shabbos. He obviously didn't copyright it because many people took the idea afterwards, and by today there probably is 20, 30, 40, 50 svarim just on Erev Pesach b'Shabbos. And of course, we're going to base ourselves on some of those svarim too. I'll just start with saying a quote that the Rebbe said about this calendar setup, that this Shabbos has two opposites. On the one hand, we have the mitzvah of Einik Shabbos, and we have to perform the mitzvah of Einik Shabbos and eating the 3 meals of Shabbos in the best possible way. And there's also Erev Pesach aspects that we have to fulfill the obligations that we have because it's Erev Pesach. The same Torah tells us to keep Shabbos, tells us to keep Erev Pesach. And if it's in the same Torah, obviously the Torah allows us to do it in the best possible way, in the most mahuldig way. We can have a proper Shabbos and a proper Einik Shabbos and a proper bir chametz and bitul chametz the way we're supposed to happen. It's a bit complicated, but the Torah gives us the koyches to be able to perform those things. Having said that, let's go through a number of things about how we perform our mitzvahs on Shabbos. Some of these things have a range of different solutions. Just to give an example, in Chabad, I know we're not big into Shalosh Shudas, but those who keep a Shalosh Shudas meal really struggle very much this Shabbos because they can't really have a Shalosh Shudas, a third meal of chametz, and you can't have matzah and Erev Pesach either. So there's a whole different setups how you can do your Shalosh Shudas, and we'll maybe talk about it a bit later on. So for a lot of these things, there's a range of different setups. We're going to go through a bunch of different options that are possible. Just one general note, not related to Erev Pesach Chal B'Shabbos, but an important note. A lot of people bought new dishes last year for Pesach, and they did not put into the mikveh because the mikvahs were closed due to COVID, and they were told they could give their dishes to a guy as a present and then borrow it from the guy on a temporary basis. Well, it's no longer temporary. A year has passed. And certainly you cannot use those dishes for this year Pesach, the ones that you had last year. You didn't tevel in the mikveh. You need to tevel in the mikveh this year without a bracha, so you should be able to use that for Pesach. That is not a Erev Pesach Chal B'Shabbos halacha. That's a COVID-related halacha that we didn't tevel in last year. Okay, so let's go in order. We mentioned that the first Shabbos, this coming Shabbos, we do the Shabbos Hagadol Drasha early. Matzah Shabbos, it's a full week before Pesach. There's no reason not to say Vihi Noyam. Erev Pesach is only on Shabbos, so we say Vihi Noyam, unlike normal Matzah Shabbos before Pesach. The fast of the firstborn, Tainas B'Chorim, is done earlier. It's not on Shabbos, and it's not on Friday, it's done on Thursday. Some people might forget to fast the Tainas B'Chorim because it's not a normal day, and there's a discussion whether he should really fast on Friday instead, if he missed out on Thursday. Since nowadays we all make siyum anyhow, so it's recommended he just makes a siyum and avoids the whole entire shaila. Comes Thursday night, we're going to be doing B'dikas Chametz. It's a proper B'dikas Chametz. We can't do B'dikas Chametz on Shabbos, we can't have a candle on Shabbos. So we have to do it on Thursday night. We make a brach on it, and we do it in the full way, like every year, all the areas, including the area you're going to be using on Shabbos. And you're going to be eating chametz there on Shabbos, the Suda Shabbos, you need to do B'dikas Chametz there in advance. You take all the chametz that you have, you put it aside, whatever chametz you're going to be eating for Shabbos, put that aside. Whatever chametz you're going to be burning, put that aside in a place that it won't scatter around all over. And now our house is officially chametz clean on the night of B'dikas Chametz, except for the bread that we're going to be burning, which is put aside, locked up, whichever way you want to put it aside, and the bread that we're going to be using for Shabbos. And after we finish B'dikas Chametz, we say the Kol Chamir, the special Kol Chamir that we say after B'dikas Chametz. If someone has been fasting all day because of Tainas B'Chorim and you're not allowed to eat before B'dikas Chametz and he has to do B'dikas Chametz in his whole entire house, he has two choices. He can either, Shulchan Aruch tells us, he can either take a taste and not a meal, which means eat fruits and vegetables, eat mezoinus less than the volume of an egg. Today there's a lot of foods he can eat. Again, if someone was fasting and someone didn't make a siyum. Alternatively, he doesn't do B'dikas Chametz himself. He asks someone else to do B'dikas Chametz so he should be able to eat his meal because he was fasting all day. Even though B'dikas Chametz is a day earlier, it needs to be done on time. And the Alter Rebbe tells us if somebody doesn't do it on time, he's considered not an otzel, not a lazy person. He's an avaryan. He's going against the Torah because Chazal told us to do B'dikas chametz on time, and it shouldn't be pushed off, and that applies this year too. That's for Thursday night. Friday morning, normally we're told Erev Pesach he's supposed to wake up extra early to be able to finish everything early because he's supposed to finish chametz early. Now, this Friday doesn't apply. There's no soif zman achilas chametz on Friday. Soif zman achilas chametz is on Shabbos. But Bichlal and Halakhas is supposed to wake up Erev Shabbos always early because he's supposed to prepare for Shabbos. This year, Erev Shabbos is a very busy Erev Shabbos because all the preparations for the Seder are going to have to happen on Friday. So either way, you got to wake up early. No excuses. We daven a regular Shachris. On Erev Pesach, we normally don't say Mizmeh L'Soyim. It's not Erev Pesach. It's Friday. Erev Pesach is on Shabbos. So on Friday, we say the regular Mizmeh L'Soyim. There's a minig, and it's brought down at Luach Kol Chabad, that not only we don't eat matzah on Erev Pesach, well, our minig is anyhow we don't eat matzah the whole 30 days before Pesach. But Luach Kol Chabad brings a specific minig not to eat matzah on the Erev Pesach in such a year, on the Friday, and also not to eat the foods of charesis and maror. So we're used to the minig Chabad not to eat any foods that go into the charesis and the maror on Erev Pesach. This year, that minig extends to a day earlier. Our garbage cans, all of those stuff, we better clean out very well on Friday morning. And any chums you're going to be using and burning, don't get your garbage can clean and use a bag or something like that. Yeah, I should mention that was one of the recommendations that were written in the Erev Pesach Shechal B'Shabbos guide that the Rebbe edited. And it said this is a recommendation for all years. Those who are going to kashering their teeth, they have false teeth that they're going to kasher. Again, I'm not going to go through all the details how you kasher false teeth, but those who kasher them regularly, there's a shayla if you can do that on Shabbos, because Shabbos you now do kashering. They will have to do it on Friday. And washing it on Shabbos, pouring hot water on Shabbos as an extra thing, any chumras that you could do on Shabbos. They also, people after they kasher their teeth, don't need any hot chametz. So they won't eat hot chametz. But they're going to be eating chametz inevitably because they're going to be eating chametz on Shabbos. So they should be careful when they eat their chametz. In addition to the fact that everybody rinses out their mouth after they eat chametz, these people particularly, since they don't want to have hot chametz, if they still have chametz in their mouth and then they're going to be eating a hot paste of the food, that means they're having hot chametz. They should rinse their mouth very, very well. Those that are going to be kashering their mouth, quote unquote, a lot of people do that because they have fillings or dentures or whatever it is, or mouth, what do you call them? Those plates they put up for your teeth. So they kasher it by drinking some hot water. That drinking hot water is okay to do on Shabbos. That's not called kashering in the regular sense. You're just drinking some hot water to the heat that you can handle. Of course, you can't boil the hot water on Shabbos. You have to prepare it before Shabbos. I will mention there's a halacha brought in Shulchan Aruch. It's not well known. You're not supposed to do bloodletting. And a lot of people say same applies to blood testing on Erev Yom Tov. It really applies only Erev Shavuos, but we're machmir every Erev Yom Tov. And Pesachim say that when Erev Yom Tov is on Shabbos, it extends to the day before to the Friday. On this Erev Shabbos, the Baal Bas has to prepare a full Shabbos meal and all the preparations for the Seder. Now, for the Shabbos meal, the halacha is you're not allowed to cook chametz for a Shabbos meal because they stick to the pot and you're going to have to go rinse out the pot and dishes afterwards. Nowadays, people have disposable dishes and they could cook in disposable dishes, but still, the minhag remains the same. We don't cook chametz in the food for this Shabbos. And there's a lot of good reasons for that even nowadays, especially if people don't have an Erev, it doesn't help it's a disposable dish. You have a disposable dish, you have to clean it from chametz right now. So the fact that it's disposable is not going to help you, and you can't really throw disposable dishes, flush it down the toilet. So we cook Pesach food for Shabbos. If you want to cook kidneys for Shabbos, you're allowed to eat kidneys until the Zman, Soif Zman Achilas Chametz on Shabbos. I believe it's 10:55. You want to cook gebraks for Shabbos, you're allowed to eat gebraks until Soif Zman Achilas Chametz. So you could do that in your chametz gekelim. You're obviously not going to put kidneys in your Pesach gekelim, and you're not going to put gebraks in your Pesach gekelim. You could use your chametz gekelim, but not cook chametz food, because that you have to get rid of before the Zman, and you can't wash dishes on Shabbos. You can cook kidneys there, and whatever, you wash your dishes afterwards, some other time. Those who want to fry fish or meat with matzah meal, and they want to eat it before Soif Zman Achilas Chametz, again, they could do that. Just be careful it doesn't mix them to your Pesach dishes and Pesach foods, for those who are looking for a fancy menu. Otherwise, generally, most people prepare Pesach food In Pesach Kelim, the only Pesach food obviously we don't prepare is matzah because you can't eat it on Shabbos. It's Erev Pesach. And the only chametz you're going to be eating on Shabbos is Shabbos challah. And it's recommended to use such challah which doesn't crumb, and people recommend to use pitas. So it's going to be an interesting Shabbos. Our chalas will be out of pitas which don't crumb. There is another option, which has its pros, but its cons. Some people don't want to have chametz in their house on Shabbos. They don't want to have chametz, but you have to have Suda Shabbos. So you can have egg matzah, which we don't eat egg matzah on Pesach. In fact, from the Zman on Erev Pesach, from Soy Zman Achilas chametz. But we're talking about the meal Friday night or early Shabbos morning. They want to have egg matzah. That's fine. You're allowed to eat egg matzah on Erev Pesach in the morning. But the problem with that is, the pro is you don't have chametz at your house. The problem is you have to eat a lot of egg matzah to be able to make chametz in it, because egg matzah, unless you eat the volume of 4 eggs and you're going to be full from it, you can't really make chametz. So these are your options. Either take challah and you're very careful with the crumbs, as we'll talk about, or you go for the egg matzah option, and then you'll have to eat quite a lot. Kugel, of course, Shabbos you eat kugel, but you make a Pesach kugel. It says, again, it says it's in Shulchan Aruch pretty clearly. We don't make chametz food, but a lot of early Sifrei and Hagim describe how they used to make a Pesach kugel for the Shabbos. Now, continuing on the Friday menu, on our Friday schedule, we're going to destroy our chametz on Friday. All the chametz we found in B'dikas chametz, any chametz that's left, everything is going to be destroyed, and we're only going to leave the food that we need for the meals on Shabbos, which we're going to put aside. Technically, you could destroy the chametz right before Shabbos, but the Shulchan Aruch says we should destroy the regular time, which is over here 11:58. So people shouldn't make mistakes. This year we did it later, and they'll get very confused, and therefore we do it the regular time. There is a custom. It's not halacha, but there is a custom. Interesting. I will mention that the Belzerov, I believe it was Shalom Belzer, the first Belzerov, I believe it was in the Sar Shalom of Belz, got a message from the Rav of Lemberg, and Rav Orenstein, who asked him to publicize that you're not allowed to eat chametz after Sreifas chametz on Friday. And the Belzerov told him that he disagrees with him. There are persons that say that. He disagrees with him, and therefore he's not going to publicize it to his Chassidim, but he personally is going to take on that chumrah, and he's not going to eat any chametz after the time of destroying the chametz, except for the Shabbos meals, because the Shulchan Aruch says you destroy everything except for your Shabbos meals. Technically, if you want to eat chametz on Friday, there's room for that. It's not a good idea, and there are persons that say you shouldn't do it. One of the other issues is because there's a whole complication about when the mechiras chametz happens. And different Rabbanim have different systems how to do mechiras chametz. And it's quite complex, and I don't want to go into that because this shiur is not for Rabbanim. This is a shiur for Balabatim. So Rabbanim have a bunch of different systems, whether we sell the chametz on Shabbos, in other words, on Friday, they should work on Shabbos, whether we sell it right before Shabbos, whether we sell it on Friday morning, that it should be effective right before Shabbos. Do we include the Shabbos food in the sale? Do we not include the Shabbos food? There's so many systems, each one has pros and cons and positives and negatives. And you have no clue what your Rav did, and your Rav himself might not know until the last minute what he's doing. And he might not want to tell you what he's doing either. So if the sale was already happened, and it's not including those 2 meals that you're going to be eating on Shabbos, but you can't add extra chametz to that on Friday. So there's a lot of good reason not to eat the chametz on Friday, especially when there's kids around too. And if you're going to be eating chametz, you have to be very careful no crumbs are left, because it might not be included in the sale. So the regular and best way is you destroy all your chametz by the time on Friday, and you only leave the food for Shabbos, a limited amount that you know you're going to need for Shabbos. Kids need to have what to eat on Friday afternoon. There's a full Pesach menu. And they're also allowed to eat matzah. There's nothing wrong with kids eating matzah. There's no halachic now to eat matzah on Friday, only on Erev Pesach. And with little kids that don't even know about Yetzias Mitzrayim, even on Erev Pesach, they're allowed to eat matzah. So if you're really stuck, you can go give them matzah. Erev Pesach, you're not allowed to work. That doesn't apply this year. Some people are machmer, but it doesn't apply this year on the day before Erev Pesach on Friday. But still, when it comes time of Bir Chametz, 11:58, you can't do anything else until you burn your Chametz. So it only applies for that. But your haircuts and cutting nails, whatever you do, which I'm normally at Pesach was supposed to try to do before midday, because after midday is a Yom Tov, because it's the time of the Shechita of the Karban Pesach. This year that doesn't apply. And if you're one of those people who like to push things to the last minute, well, the last minute is a bit earlier this year, but you could do it all Friday afternoon. You could cut your nails and take haircuts and all of that. If you didn't destroy your chametz by 11:58, destroy it afterwards, till Shkia. Because, as we said, we're only doing it earlier, so we shouldn't make a mistake for every other year. But technically, in theory, you'd be able to do it until Shabbos comes in. You could destroy it. You could take it out of your possession and make it hefker. Hefker only means if it's out of your property and declared ownerless. After the Zman on a regular Erev Pesach, you can't make it hefker. It doesn't help you if you make it hefker. Because once you kind of have no, it's not yours to make hefker. But now it's not after the Zman. The Zman is going to be on Shabbos. So if you forgot to destroy your chametz, you could find any method of destruction or make it hefker and take it out of your property on Friday until Shabbos. We will, however, not say the Kol Chamira on Friday when we burn the chametz, because you can't say Kol Chamira that I'm destroying all the chametz. We have the Kol Chamira that we say after Bedikas chametz, that's for the chametz that we didn't find. But I can't say all the chametz that I do know about, I'm going to nullify. That's what Kol Chamira is. You're not nullifying it. Just 2 rolls, 2 pitas, 2 challahs, more than 2 if you have a large family. They're putting aside, actually more than 2 for everyone because you have Lechem Mishnah. They're putting aside for Shabbos. So you're not nullifying your chametz. So don't say Kol Chamira until Shabbos. The Yehir Ratzon, the minig is, and people say that the Rebbe did so, that we do say on Friday when we burn the chametz, that Yehir Ratzon has to do with the burning and not with the nullifying. So this Friday, we're not going to say the Kol Chamira, we're going to say the Yehir Ratzon. And before you do the Bir Chametz, the time of Bir Chametz on Friday, if you didn't do so yet, make sure you lock up all the last things. Put away your food that you're going to eat for Shabbos in a special place. So that's whether the Rav included in the sale or didn't include in the sale, 2 different systems. Most Rabbanim do not include the food you're going to eat on Shabbos in the sale because afterwards you're eating it. So it's set aside, this is not being sold, you're going to be eating it. Have your closets in such a way that if you need to put things back on Shabbos, you can open and close it. So you don't want to tape it. You can use a string and make a bow or something like that. Take out your garbage, your vacuum cleaner, and your pockets that you're going to be wearing afterwards. You shake out your pockets normally during Bir Chametz, but if you're going to be wearing clothing on Shabbos, you have to shake out again your pockets on Shabbos, even though we're so careful on Shabbos, before the time of getting rid of your chametz on Shabbos. Somebody didn't sell his chametz on Friday, and it's Friday afternoon, you should call a Rav urgently to find out what he can do. On a normal Erev Pesach, it's way too late, he has to get rid of his chametz. On the Erev Pesach, you only have till the Zman. And this Erev Pesach, if you missed the time, the Zman of 11:58, technically it could be sold later, even though most of the Rabbanim would have sold it already. So get in touch with the Rav to find out what you can do. Kashering your kalim, if you didn't do so, Erev Pesach after the Zman, you can kasher your kalim through Havdalah, through hot water, but this year, if you didn't do it, you can do it all the way until Shabbos. And of course, hopefully we're looking forward to this Erev Shabbos. We're going to have something else. If it's Hashem, the Erev Shabbos before Pesach, we're going to have to prepare all the stuff for the shechita of the carbon Pesach, because shechting the carbon Pesach is on Shabbos. But anything that you could do before Shabbos, like bringing the carbon, preparing the knife, making the knife hegdish, all those things, we need to go and prepare on Erev Shabbos. Mitzvah will do that. Erev Chatzeiris, we normally make an Erev Pesach. We're obviously not going to do it on Shabbos. We're going to be doing it on Friday. And it's a big machlekes whether you should use chametz or matzah. There's a problem with each one. Matzah, you can't eat a whole Shabbos. And chametz, you can't eat a whole Shabbos either, only for a certain time. The minig is we use matzah, but don't use matzah that's set aside for the Seder, because that is muktzah, because that you might not use for anything else. Other matzah, technically, you could use. You can give it to children. You could put it into hot water, and then it's no longer considered matzah in a klisheni on Shabbos. So therefore, we can make an Erev Chatzeiris with matzah. All other preparations for the Seder, opening your bottles of wine, your matzahs, roasting the zraya, checking the lettuce from bugs, drying them, grating the charein, preparing the charein, all of them is going to happen on Friday. Talking about the lettuce, you're not supposed to leave butter in water for more than 24 hours because then it's considered cooked. It's soaked. Kavish kamavushal, Halakhas soak is like cooked. And cooked mutter is not considered mutter. So here we have an extra day. We're preparing everything on Friday, soak now lettuce, make sure it doesn't stay soaked in water for 24 hours. If you put it in water, you let it go, take it out even on Shabbos. If you can get a good, but better, you can even do it yourself. You didn't put your lettuce into the fridge before Shabbos, you let it put it into the fridge on Shabbos. It's not muktzah, even though it's our meaning, we don't need the lettuce on Shabbos, on Erev Pesach. It's not considered prepared for Shabbos to Yom Tov. It's not considered muktzah, and you should definitely put it in your fridge because probably your lettuce won't last so well without a fridge. But it shouldn't be stuck as being water. And some people don't cover the charein on Erev Pesach after they grate it because it's going to be way too sharp. But if you're leaving it for 2 days now, from Friday and on Shabbos till Matzah Shabbos for the Seder, one should cover it so it shouldn't lose its sharpness. You're going to check your matzahs that there's no kfulas and afuchas doubled over or blown up Those things we consider chametz. Check them all on Erev Pesach, on Erev Shabbos. Set up your table for the Seder. Now that could be a problem. If you're going to be eating Shabbos in the same room, you're going to be eating the Seder, so you can't set up your table. If you're going to be eating in different rooms, so you can already set up your Seder table. So when it comes to Shabbos, officially the halacha is the whole table should be ready, except for the kaida. Many times we set up the kaida right before Kiddush by the Seder, but the area is supposed to be ready in advance. On Erev Pesach already. So if you can do it now and have it all ready on Erev Shabbos, on Shabbos you can't. You're not prepared from Shabbos to Yom Tov, but if you can have it all ready on Erev Shabbos, your dining room is all, because you're going to be eating in some garage on Shabbos, where you're going to be eating your chametz, and you want to have your dining room all set up, that would be great. Before Shabbos, remember, all the cleaning tickets take off, open up all the clothing wraps. There's sometimes pockets that are sewed up. The tzitzis have to be checked and tied. The kalim that you have to tevel in the mikveh, they didn't tevel yet. Matzahs, they have to separate challah. Bread that you have for Shabbos, that challah wasn't separated. If you made your own challah. If you didn't separate challah before Shabbos, this year we're in big trouble. On a normal Shabbos, there's ways how to deal with that. You eat some of it and you leave some over for after Shabbos. Here you can't leave over any chametz, so you can't even, if you didn't separate challah, all the challah goes into the toilet. Cut up your plastics and tablecloths, especially for this kind of Shabbos. You want to use a lot of disposables. We'll talk about it soon. Have your tablecloths, plastic tablecloths, all cut up. It's a very good idea to have pre-cut cleaning towel paper, because you might have to wipe up things and get, because of chametz, after your Shabbos meals to clean up. So it's a good idea to have that prepared before Shabbos. Shabbos clocks prepared before Shabbos for all of Yom Tov. Tzedakah for Shabbos and 2 days Yom Tov, and checking your pockets before Shabbos. New clothing that you bought for Yom Tov. Some people say it's best to put it on before Shabbos already, because it's not nice for Shabbos. You have Shabbos and Yom Tov, and you're waiting till Yom Tov to put it on. Shabbos is more chashuv than Yom Tov. But some people, and to put it on Shabbos afternoon means you're preparing for Yom Tov. If you're putting it on right before Yom Tov comes in, you're preparing from Shabbos to Yom Tov. So it's best to put it on right before Shabbos. Unless you don't want to put it on before Shabbos because you're scared because of chametz, that's fine. So you'll put it on Shabbos, but put it early enough so you're wearing it for extended amount of time on Shabbos and you're not preparing on Shabbos to Yom Tov. Prepare fire, either the gas or whatever it is, for lichbenchen on Matzah Shabbos. You should have fire to be able to light a Yom Tov. Prepare your candles. People have those candles. If anybody still uses those candles, they have to stick in. You can't do that on Yom Tov. Set up your candles for Shabbos that you can make Kiddush. When you're making Kiddush, when you're eating your bread, at least those parts you're supposed to be able to see the candles. If you're planning to eat on your porch, your challah, or I don't know where you're planning, make sure that you make Kiddush and your challah in a place that you can see the candles. Set that all up on Friday. If you want to clean up afterwards, so you have to be able to move the candles, so you have to set up your tablecloth in such a way you can move the table and the candles. You put a safer on the table, put the plastic in such a way, some people do, they put the plastic only to where the candles are, and there's no plastic where the candles are at the edge of the table, or they cut out the plastic around where the plastic tablecloth, around where the candles are, so they can remove the plastic tablecloth, or they use disposable candlesticks, whichever system works. But think about all of that. Let's move on to the actual meals of Shabbos. We come to shul, we'd have a maidav Friday nights, a regular Friday night maidav, and then we come home, we're going to make Kiddush. Your choices, you can have a disposable becher, a nice, beautiful disposable becher, a kashering Pesach becher, which is not going to touch your challah, or a chametz becher, and after Kiddush, you'll put it back with your chametz kelim. The Shulchan says it's always good to leave over some leftover wine from Kiddush for Havdalah, but if you're going to be using your chametz becher, don't leave your wine from Kiddush on Shabbos with your chametz becher for Havdalah on Matzah Shabbos, which is Pesach. Your washing best should be as close as possible to where you're eating. There shouldn't be a hefsek. But if it's impossible because of the technical arrangement that we have in the Shabbos, and since you're only walking for the purpose of the meal, you're only doing that at walking, it's okay to wash in one place and then go eat, and walk a bit and then go eat. Set up the place where you're going to be eating your Halakhas in a place which doesn't blow, where there's no wind, because crumbs could blow all over, and it's easy to clean. Don't eat Halakhas on a carpet or in a chair that has, what do you call them? Places where crumbs can fall in. Make sure chametz doesn't go in your clothing, and of course, if you're going to be using a knife for your challah or your pita, if you're going to be using, don't use a pesach knife. Obviously, you must eat at least a bit more than the volume of an egg, more than a kabeya of bread. It's not a lot of bread, it's volume, it's not weight. Look what an egg looks like, whatever fits into the size of an egg, and a tiny bit more than that. Some people rather eat in the room, which are anyhow selling to the guy, but it's not going to help them from everything that we're talking about. It's just for emotional sensitivity, not to have challah in your kitchen, but you'll still have to clean up and destroy everything afterwards. Now, there are a number of problems that come up with this setup of eating challah on a Shabbos Erev Pesach. Besides for the Balabasta's concern, challah, Pesach in the kitchen, I'm talking about the halachic problems. And you have to set up a system which accommodates all these issues. You're supposed to make kiddush in the place where you're eating your meal. You're not supposed to walk out of your meal, only if it's for a mitzvah. And you're supposed to bench in the place where you ate bread. And furthermore, and this is the big issue, that the halacha is, it's not practiced nowadays because we don't have this system nowadays. In the olden days, people used to eat bread, remove the table, forget about the bread, and now have what we call the dessert table. And halacha is, if you get rid of all the bread, and now you're just having a dessert table with no bread in it. Today's day and age, the dessert table also has bread because half of those cakes are really bread. But if there's no more bread, normally the bread covers all the food. So you don't make a bracha on all the food because bread covers all the food of the meal. There's no chametz. But if you got rid of the bread, got rid of the table, it's like a brand new meal. So all the new food that you're bringing, you have to make a new bracha. And that is a problem on Erev Pesach Chalis b'Shabbos. You're eating your challah, you're quickly wiping up all the challah, no more challah, done, no more challah. So how's your challah, what you gave up on? It might have been even after the time when you're not allowed challah anymore, but even if it's still within the time, but you don't want to have any more challah. You moved away from the place of the challah. How's that going to cover your soup and your fish and your chicken and all your basically your food? So these are the issues we have to contend with, and there's a number of solutions. Of course, if somebody could eat everything in one place, and he has a good system, he could eat in the same room his challah and his Shabbos meal, his fish and everything, great. If that's not possible, you could eat your bread, go out of the room where you're eating the bread, clean yourself up, and go to another room where you're going to be eating your Pesach food. And then before benching, since you didn't finish your bread yet, you come back and eat a tiny bit of bread. You don't have to eat a lot of bread. No kazayas. Back in the first spot again, and bench there. So you bench where you ate your bread, you didn't give up on eating bread, and you had a normal meal. If that doesn't work, and again, you have to know what works for your family, you could make kiddush in the room where you're going to be eating the chametz, eat the chametz, and then bench. And then you'll eat fish and cholent and kugel and whatever else there is, all your basically food. The only disadvantage with that is that fish and meat all should be in the meal, not out of the meal, but it's okay. And if you really don't want to have even your kiddush and your bread in the same place, you can make kiddush. And since kiddush is supposed to be kiddush makam suda, the halacha is if you take another cup of wine after kiddush, that's kiddush makam suda. A cup of wine is like a suda. I'm not sure if that works for everybody around the table. If everybody, the wife, the women, and children will be comfortable taking a cup of wine or a cup of grape juice, that I don't know. So you have to know if that works for them. So, but these are the options. Again, I'll repeat the options. You can eat everything in one room. You can eat your bread in your chametz room. Move out of there, go to your Pesach room, eat your Pesach food, and go back to your chametz room and eat more bread before benching. Alternatively, kiddush, bread, bench, and then eat everything else in a different room. Kids, it might not work with little kids to give them chametz. And if they're not the age of chinuch, I don't think it's a good idea to give them chametz. They don't have to eat Suda Shabbos. You can try matzah with them. Kids that are at the age of chinuch should really eat bread. And so we'll give them a bit less bread. We'll give them only a kazayas. You can be lenient with the kazayas. Some people, because of this Shabbos arrangement, would rather eat in a garden. But you have to be very careful when you're eating in a garden where there's a place where there's greenery, that water shouldn't spill there. And you're not allowed to do that on Shabbos. If you're keeping a limited amount of challah just for Shabbos, you might have a problem with lechem mishnah. Can you use your matzah for lechem mishnah? So matzahs, that regular matzah is okay, even though you're not allowed to eat matzah, but they're still edible. They can be eaten for little children. But matzahs that you're keeping, especially for the Seder night, you watch, this is my Seder night matzahs, you're makbid. You're not going to give them to your kids, unless you have a lot of them, and therefore they're muktzah. And you can't use them for lechem mishnah, and they're muktzah, you can't move them. Regular matzahs you could join with your lechem mishnah, just don't let your matzah touch your challah. bread for lechem mishra don't have to touch each other. While you're eating, women who have cleaned all their jewelry should not be wearing their jewelry if they cleaned already from chametz while they're eating, obviously, the chametz. You finished your meal, now you have to clean up. Or even before finishing the meal, you might want to clean up. You weren't supposed to cook chametz food for the Shabbos. If you did cook chametz food, you have now dishes you have to wash. So normally you're not allowed to wash dishes on Shabbos unless you're going to reuse those dishes. Here, because of the mitzvah of not having chametz, it's a tzarich mitzvah, preferably you should wipe them down. If you can't even wipe them down, you're allowed to even wash them. Because of the isra of chametz, even if it's not mamish asr, it's only a chumrah, you're allowed to wash those dishes. But Pesach, the dishes, for sure you can't wash because you're not even planning to use them for Shabbos, these dishes again. So you can't wash these dishes on Shabbos. When you're pouring from your pot into a dish, it's not really relevant. Most people are just having Pesach pots and Pesach dishes or disposables. But if you're going to be pouring from a Pesach dish, you shouldn't pour into a chametz dish. Obviously, use a disposable in between. How do you get rid of now? What happens with dishes after the meal? So a lot of people prefer to use disposables for the Shabbos, but disposable only works if you have an Erev. So you can throw them out in a hefker place. You can't throw them to your garbage can, which you personally own. You can throw the disposable dishes in a place that's hefker. People say that Bnei Brak, the place which has the most chametz on Pesach, is Bnei Brak. Because on Erev Pesach falls on a Shabbos, there's an Erev there, everybody takes all the chametz and puts it to the street. You're walking in on Pesach and see full of chametz all over the street. So it is ironic. That, if there's an Erev, disposable makes sense. If there is no Erev, so you might want to use regular dishes and then rinse them or wipe them down with paper towels and flush the paper towels in the bathroom. You might want to use disposable dishes and prepare in advance a solution which, as soon as you put in the disposable dishes in there, it becomes inedible. You have to prepare this before Shabbos because your bleach might be muktzah. Most people don't have any of these problems. They eat all Pesach foods, and the only thing they're eating is challah. The challah they're going to eat in a napkin carefully. And when they finish eating, all the crumbs and the napkins will be thrown and flushed in the toilet. Just be careful you don't stuff up the toilet. When you finish eating Friday night, make sure whatever's remaining challah for tomorrow is put aside right away. Now, before you come into the house proper, or to your Pesach rooms, you'll wash it before you touch your dishes and your Pesach food. You wash after you ate your chametz, by night or by day, you'll wash your hands, you'll shake your clothing, you'll look at the any folds like in your pants, any creases, anything where your beard, you'll wash it all down, shake it all down into the toilet or on the bathtub. Don't shake in there, basically, Kaylin. Watch your kids and make sure they don't bring any crumbs into the rooms of the house. Some people have a hard time eating the challah on Pesach because it gets stuck in their teeth, especially if they have dentures. They might want to eat only the soft part of the challah, and they might even want to soften it in water so it doesn't get stuck afterwards. What I said now applies to Friday night and Shabbos day. Now we'll move on to Shabbos day. Shabbos morning, we wake up very early. We have to finish eating our Suda of chametz early before the Zman. In 770 this year, the Mitzvah Shem davening 7:45 Shabbos morning. The Chazan is told not to go daven too long. He's not supposed to rush davening. He's supposed to daven normally, but it shouldn't extend it because it's a serious issue of Isra Chametz, and even some place means Lashon Merut success. A bit rushed, but not very rushed. There's a different Havdalah this year. Finally, we're going to be saying the Havdalah of Shabbos HaGadol. We normally say the regular Parsha Havdalah, but when it's Erev Pesach, we say the special Havdalah of Shabbos HaGadol. And as mentioned earlier, matzah is forbidden to be eaten Shabbos day according to Halakhas, not just a question of minig. Our menu is quite limited in the Shabbos. We can't have matzah. We can't have any food that goes into the charesis and the maror. And we finish our chametz by 10:55 in the morning. Before comes the zman of chametz, we're going to clean our teeth very, very well. Carefully, you can use toothpicks in a way that you're not going to make your teeth bleed. You can use dental floss that was pre-cut before Shabbos. If you're one of those people that when you use dental floss, it doesn't bleed. If you're always bleeding, you're not allowed to do that. You could rub your teeth with your fingers very well and rinse your mouth out very well and use mouthwash, which will destroy any chametz that's there. Toothpaste may not be used. A toothbrush can be used, a dry toothbrush, provided that you don't normally bleed when you brush your teeth. you should use a special Shabbos toothbrush, and when you finish, rinse out your toothbrush. You let it rinse it out because it's for chametz reasons, and put it away with your chametz and stuff. After the Zman of Achilas chametz, you'll only eat Pesach good foods, besides from matzah, wine, nuts, apples, those charesis and foods that we said we don't eat. If somebody wakes up late on Shabbos morning, well, he won't have his meal. That's what happens when you wake up late. But he could eat, he can have matzah, he can have chametz, he could eat meat and fish. He should try to eat some type of food with something filling, fruits for the Shivas Aminim. If he has dates around, that's preferable. Something like potato, something filling. Now, you have to remember that on this Shabbos, we have to do something called Bitul chametz. You finished your meal early, you clean yourself up. You have to do Bitul chametz and destroy all the chametz that you have before 11:58. So you can't put the chametz in a place that you sold to the guy. The sale happened on Friday. So anything that has chametz in it, you have to get rid of. It's not muktzah chametz yet until the time of 11:58, because so far this time you can still give you chametz to an animal to eat. It's not muktzah. You can't eat it, but you have to get rid of it. So you wipe down your dishes, you shake out the tablecloth, and in Shulchan Aruch says you take your tablecloth and your dishes, and you put away in a closet you're not going to use on Pesach. Today's day and age, people use disposable tablecloths, and they eat the chalas over a tissue. They'll shake out the tablecloth just in case of any crumbs, and all the crumbs will go into the toilet, and the tablecloth, which is clean, could go into the garbage. Any chametz you have left, you didn't eat as much as you planned to eat, make it into crumbs, and stuff it in the toilet. Unless you have an native, you can take it to a hefker place. If you have big pieces of bread, and you can't crumb it down, and your toilet is already stuffed, and there is no Erev, you can give it as a present to a guy. The guy will pick it up, it will become his. Don't give it to the guy directly, put it down, the guy will pick it up. And if the guy has to carry it into the Rishus Harabim, then what happens is you're supposed to give him enough for one meal at a time. You shouldn't have more than one meal anyhow, because you didn't have that much. And you don't tell him clearly to take it out, you give it to him and say it's his. And the guy could come back again and again and take more and more chametz. Each time enough for one meal at a time. The other options, you can take your chametz and put it into something. If you have a prepared bleach solution, you put it into that bleach solution before the Zman beer, and you can do that too. Don't put your chametz to your garbage can that belongs to you, and make sure you sweep up the whole area and all the chametz. You shake out the broom in the bathroom, in the toilet, and put your broom away with the chametz in your kelim, and you're not allowed to wash your floor on Shabbos. Your pockets you're going to check out now, and then say the Bitul. Now you have to remember very well not to forget this Bitul. It's not part of the normal procedure. Normally you say during burning chametz. Here, it's not in the normal time. You might forget. It's a good idea to set up some type of visual reminder that the whole family together will say the whole Chol HaMoed together. If time of Bir chametz came and you didn't get rid of your chametz, you have to cover it until Matzah Yom Tov. 2 days later, you're going to burn it then. If you have dishes that you didn't put away that are chametz in the dishes, they're clean, you can try to put them away. And if you have disposable dishes that have chametz, if you weren't supposed to, you're supposed to get rid of it before there's man, you're not even move it because it's dirty. It doesn't look nice to have disposable dishes with chametz on them. Move them, put them aside somewhere, and Matzah Yom Tov, you'll burn them. And now we have a long afternoon, and you could sleep, you could do a lot of things. The Rebbe in Tafshin Amalef surprised us all, and at 1:30 came into a Fabrengen with a very small crowd, because not too many people knew that the Rebbe's Fabrengen. And this Fabrengen, the Rebbe had bananas and a jug of water. And the Rebbe said he didn't want to have wine for this Fabrengen, because you're not supposed to drink wine on Erev Pesach after the 10th hour of the day. He decided he'll have fruit. And he had bitachon, but his bitachon only accomplished a lot of fruit beruchnis, and unfortunately he couldn't bring a lot of fruit begashmi. So he just had a few bananas. And it's not that the Rebbe said, I should eat the fruit myself. Even if I put them to crumbs, it's not going to be enough for the whole crowd. So what he's going to do is going to give the fruit to the Mara da Asra, to the Rav, which is Rabbi Dvarkin, and he'll join with him the rest of the Beis Din. And Rabbi Dvarkin will eat, it's considered as if the whole crowd ate. And the Rebbe took some banana pieces with his plate. The Rebbe separated some banana pieces for himself. He took his plate with the rest of the banana and a jug of water and gave it to Rabbi Dvarkin that he should eat and drink for the crowd. So basically, the Rebbe had banana, Rabbi Dvarkin had banana and water, and no one else ate and drank. The Rebbe said l'chaim over water. The Rebbe sang out the Rebbe's niggin, and the Fabrengen, it was from 1:30 till 4 o'clock. So Mitzvah Shalom will be zeicher to Fabrengen too. And that's so we will have what to do on this long Erev Shabbos. We woke up very, very early. Shalosh Shudas, it's not Chabad main kind of proper meal for Shalosh Shudas ever, but now this year, even people who do have a Shalosh Shudas meal, the halacha is some people split their meal in the morning into two, but the halacha is you're supposed to eat Shalosh Shudas with meat, fish, or fruit. After 4:08, which is the 10th hour of the day, you're not supposed to fill yourself up. You're supposed to have an appetite for the Seder. You're not supposed to drink wine. And even if you're going to eating fruit or vegetables, you should only eat a little bit of it. No preparations for the Seder till Matzah Shabbos, no setting up tables, unless the place just doesn't look nice. It's for beauty, just to have the place looking clean. You can go to sleep for the Seder. If you're not one of those chassidim that are machbid not to sleep on Shabbos afternoon, you can put your kids to sleep, but don't say that you're going to sleep for Yom Tov, so in order you don't expressly talk about preparing for Yom Tov. Mincha is davened early. We have to say the Seder Korban Pesach before Shkia. After Mincha, we say the Haggadah, and after the Haggadah, you're going to be saying the Seder Korban Pesach. And it seems like that's what the Rebbe did. It's the order the Rebbe spoke about it too. He davened Mincha, he did the Haggadah, he went up to his room and he said Seder Korban Pesach. Matzah Shabbos is going to be Ma'ariv of Yom Tov, and if you're going to bench licht or do any malacha that you do on Yom Tov that you can't do on Shabbos, any preparation for Yom Tov, then you should daven Ma'ariv and say Havdalah in Ma'ariv, which is Latei Dienu. Alternatively, say at least the words Baruch HaMavdil Ben Kodesh L'Chel. A person who forgot to say Latei Dienu, which is not a common part of our davening, doesn't have to daven again, but he still is now allowed to do Melechas Oichel Nefesh Malach. They're allowed to do Yom Tov until he says Havdalah Ben Kodesh L'Kodesh, just as to say at least the words Baruch HaMavdil Ben Kodesh L'Kodesh. And then we come to the Seder. The Seder is a bit different. The first night of the Seder, we're going to be saying Yak Nahaz, which is Yayin, Kiddush, Ner, Havdalah, Zman, which is Beir Pi HaGofen, Mekadosh Yisrael V'Azmanim, Beir Ma'ire Ha'esh, Hamavdil Ben Kodesh L'Kodesh, and Shechianu, as printed in the Haggadah. The only reason it's in the Haggadah is for a year when Pesach falls out on Matzah Shabbos, like this year. Often it falls out the second night of Pesach. This year we're lucky it's the first night of Pesach, because Matzah Shabbos. For Havdalah, it is our meaning that we don't put the candles together, we don't unite the flame together, we don't look at our nails, and certainly you're not allowed to extinguish the candle. What we do, we take the candles that we lit for Yom Tov, we just look at them, each candle the way it's standing by itself, and that's what we use for Havdalah. It's important not to forget Havdalah, because we're going to be eating a lot throughout the Seder. And there's a whole complicated procedure, what you do if you forget Havdalah, and you remember it after the first cup, and what you do if you remember after the second cup, and after the third cup, you're not supposed to add to the cups of wine. I'm not going to go through all those Halakhas, just don't forget your Havdalah, remember to do Havdalah. Comes to the second night Seder, the only change that we have on the second night Seder is in the words. It's like a regular Seder, except for the fact that we change around the brach at the end of Magin. Instead of saying the Noichel Sham, Min Apsachim, Min Azvachim, and Min Apsachim, we say Min Apsachim, Min Azvachim. It's printed in the Haggadah, but you say different on Matzah Shabbos. Sorry, did I say that's the second night? That's the first night. And the reason is the second night is back to normal. The reason is, on a normal year, we bring two karbanos on Erev Pesach. We bring the Korban Pesach, and we also bring a Korban Chagig, because we're supposed to eat the Korban Pesach when you're full. Al Hasoiva. So we first eat meat from the Korban Chagig, that makes you full, and then you eat the Korban Pesach when you're already full. Like we do nowadays, unfortunately, with African. I'm saying unfortunately because we would have preferred to do that with the Korban Pesach. And so far, we haven't yet managed to do that in the last 2,000 years. So we eat the Korban, Afikoyim is eaten at the end of the Seder. So the Korban Pesach, after you're already full, then you eat the Korban, from the Chagig, you eat the Korban Pesach. On Erev Pesach that falls on Shabbos, you're not allowed to bring the Chagig. You're allowed to bring a Korban Pesach, but you can't bring your Chagig. Chagig is optional, so we don't bring it in the year like this. So make a conscious note of that. We're going to prepare for the Korban Pesach this year, but not for a Korban Chagig. So when Pesach night is on Matzah Shabbos, we don't say Min Hazvachim, which is the Chagiga, Umin Apsachim and the Korban Pesach. We didn't bring the Chagiga before the Korban Pesach. We say Min Apsachim and Min Hazvachim. And what that means, Min Apsachim is the Korban Pesach. In Min Hazvachim, and the first day Yom Tov, we're going to bring a Chagiga, because we always bring on Yom Tov a Korban anyhow. So that order has changed. The second night Yom Tov, everything is back to normal. There's no Havdalah, and there's no change of Min Apsachim and Hazvachim. Chol HaMoed this year is unique, that all the days of Chol HaMoed There's no Shabbos Chol HaMoed. All days Chol HaMoed are weekdays. Now, you tell that to kids, they say, oh, we have a Chol HaMoed full of trips. The Rebbe talks about a Chol HaMoed like this, like a year like this, with its Chol HaMoed Yomim Resufim Yemei HaChol, that means there's no Shabbos and Yom Tov. And Shabbos is a lesson, obligation of learning Torah because of the mitzvah of Einik Shabbos. On Yom Tov, you have to do Chetzi L'Hashem, Chetzi L'Lachem. Part of it is for yourself, and part for Hashem. You can't learn Torah that much. Chol HaMoed was only given so we should learn Torah. The Yerushalmi tells us the whole purpose of Chol HaMoed is that Eden should sit and learn Torah. So, especially when it comes to Pesach, when we can't even go on Mitzvahim on Chol HaMoed Pesach. No Mitzvah Dawal D'minim like on Sukkot. So we have continuously a bunch of days we can learn Torah. The Rebbe says that's a very special Pesach where we can learn Torah without any interruptions throughout the entire Chol HaMoed. Moving after Chol HaMoed comes Shiur Shel Pesach. Erev Shiur Shel Pesach. Shiur Shel Pesach is going to be on Shabbos this year, so we make all the preparations like for Shabbos, and we come to Mincha. We're going to be saying Paschal Yom and Hoidu like we never say on a Yom Tov or Chol HaMoed, which is on the Erev Shabbos. And the Shiur Shel Pesach is going to be like a Shabbos. Matzah Shabbos is going to be Achar Shel Pesach, and again we go through the same thing again on Matzah Shabbos on Achar Shel Pesach. After Pesach is on a Sunday. On that Matzah Shabbos, you can't do any malacha until you say Dav Ma'ariv with Vatoidienu. We're going to have Vatoidienu twice, or at least say the words Baruch Hamav Kodesh L'Kodesh. And the Havdalah, the Kiddush of Achar Shel Pesach will be similar to the first night of Pesach with one change. Instead of Yaknahaz, it's Yakna, without the Zayin Zman for Shechianu. Yakna, Yayin, Kiddush, Ner, Havdalah, meaning Hagafen, Mekadosh Yisrael V'Azmanim, Ma'ireh Ha'esh. Don't put the candles together. And Hamadl ben Kodesh l'Kodesh, no Shechianu. We don't say Shechianu on the last day's Pesach, because so far we don't have the actual Geula in a reality, and therefore we don't say Shechianu only if it's tangible, something that we can actually touch. Before I make some concluding remarks, I'm going to check if there's any questions that people asked. Let me have a look at the chat. Let me see if I can do this. Okay, there's a question if we can eat salads that we don't usually eat on Pesach because of a minig on this Shabbos using Pesach Kelim. There's no real halacha about that. It's really a question of matter of minig. Some people don't use their Pesach Kelim for anything that they're not used on Pesach, and other people not particular. And some people even have the minig that they use their Pesach Kelim for Erev Pesach, and every year, not on the falls on Shabbos, until they night, they're still not makbid about all their chumras. Technically, according to Halakhas, it's not really a problem. And definitely until the Zman of Achilas Chametz, there's no real problem putting the things in your Pesach Kelim. You need to open your bottle of wines before Shabbos. And even if you're allowed to open bottles of wine before Shabbos, but the Friedrich Rebbe tells us that it's still a chatchil to have everything open before Shabbos. The question was asked, how much pita do you have to eat for a motzi? The answer is, you're supposed to eat more than the size of the volume of an egg. So it's hard to say how much is in a pita slice, but a pita slice is definitely much more than the volume of an egg. So you can eat a bit more if you want to eat more, but don't overeat yourself, don't prepare too much. The issue with the Shabbos is that we have to have lechem mishnah. Lechem mishnah, we eat normally one, another one we save. So Friday night, we have lechem mishnah, the second one we'll save. Shabbos day you have two, what are you going to do with the second one? So if you're eating with a family, they could all share that. If you're all eating by yourself, you might have to eat both pizzas Shabbos day, or you'll have to flush the second one. I'll just point out something someone pointed out in the chat here. I said that on one of the systems you can arrange is to for your meal is to make kiddush, eat bread, go out and eat your Pesach food, and come back and eat bread again. I didn't say this, but it's pretty obvious. You can only eat bread again if it's not the zman of seif zman achilas chametz. If someone wrote to me also that it's better to use tissues instead of napkins, not to stuff up the toilet, that's 100% true. Napkins have an advantage, tissues have an advantage. The napkins have an advantage that it doesn't rip so easily. But when it comes to putting into the toilet, the tissues are definitely better. So you might want to put your pitas on tissues, and a lot of people actually do that. You're allowed to have potatoes on Shabbos even though it's on the Seder plate. In response to a question, the only thing we don't eat from the Seder is charoises, murr, and matzah on Erev Pesach, and then this year there's a minig also not on Friday. But You're allowed to eat everything else on the Seder plate. You're allowed to eat the egg, you're allowed to eat. You're allowed to eat eggs. You're allowed to eat potatoes. You're allowed to eat onions. Just what goes into the charesis and it goes into the butter and, of course, matzah. Question here about wine. I said we don't eat wine on Erev Pesach. What about the Kiddush wine Shabbos day? The Kiddush wine is still before the time when you can't eat wine. You can't drink wine. You can drink wine from the time of Shah Sidus for the 10th hour. Otherwise, you could have wine on Shabbos Erev Pesach. Question. I said we don't bring a karban chagiga, and someone asked, but don't we have an egg for the karban chagiga? Yes, that's actually an interesting question because the place can talk about this. Should you prepare 2 dishes this year because we don't have the karban chagiga? Some place can say you shouldn't have the zroya and the beya, which is the shank bone and the egg, because we don't have a karban chagiga this year. The halacha is not like that. We found that we don't make any changes from any other year, and we do prepare the second dish also, but the karban chagiga we don't have. So we have the zeicha for the chagiga, but we don't have the chagiga. Yes, that is correct. Question, what am I allowed to put away for the goy on Shabbos, and what can I not put away? Kalim versus actual chametz, are the kalim sold? So, all chametz you have to get rid of. Kalim don't have to be sold. Kalim is not chametz. Even something that's kalim have to be locked up, you can't have chametz and kalim laying out, but they're not sold. What we sell now, kalim, is only kalim that have actual chametz in it. So in our shtar mechira, I should put this as a general knowledge. Some people don't sell kalim for Pesach at all because they're afraid if they sell it to the goy, they'll have to total all the kalim after Pesach. So therefore, they don't sell kalim at all. Some people write they're only selling the chametz on the kalim, but not the keli. We have no problem selling kalim if they have chametz on them. But if they have no chametz on them, you don't even have to sell them. So when it comes, that's a response to the question over here. So when it comes to Shabbos Erev Pesach, we're not going to be using kalim anyhow. We're using all Pesach like kalim. If somebody for some reason used the chametz in your keli, you weren't supposed to cook in the chametz in your keli because it gets sticky and then you're not allowed to wash unnecessarily. Once you cooked, you have to clean it. So you clean it, the chametz gets flushed, destroyed in a way that you're allowed to destroy on Shabbos, and the keli gets put away once it's clean. How can you eat gebrachs on Shabbos if you can't eat matzah? The response to that question is, matzah that you're not allowed to eat is only matzah you can fulfill your mitzvah. Gebrachs, you can't be mekayim mitzvahs matzah. We are machmin that we don't even eat chametz diga matzah because it is technically the same as regular matzah, but gebrachs is not the actual mitzvah of matzah, the same way you're allowed to eat egg matzah also. Dishes, again, I think we pretty much touched this. Can you put the dishes in the spare refrigerator you sold? Again, if the dishes are clean, you can put them in the refrigerator you sold. That's not a problem. If the dishes have chametz in them, so if the sale was effective before Shabbos, all this chametz you have to get rid of. So the challah you can, for example, put away. Somebody mentioned that the pita obviously has to be hamaitzi pizza. Yeah, that's a very, very important point. I mentioned that there's 2 options. You can use the matzah shiur option instead of challah. I mentioned that early in the shiur. Somebody asked a question that I didn't mention early in the shiur. You can use egg matzah, but then some mezonos you have to eat a large amount. So pita, you should either use hamaitzi pita. If you're going to be using mezonos pita, you're going to have to be eating a lot in order to become hamaitzi. I don't know if we can cover all these questions. Let's see if there's a lot here. Okay, we're a bit early, so we can cover some more questions. Before I go further with any of the questions, I should point out there's going to be most of this information, all this information, I should say, plus more in the Badat's Pesach guide. And there's also a recording of the shiur available afterwards from Rabbi Dagan, who's probably going to announce how to get the recording as soon as we finish the shiur. People who don't eat packaged processed food like mayonnaise can eat it the Shabbos afternoon. It's not a question for this year, it's a question for every year. What do you do on every Erev Pesach? If every Erev Pesach you don't eat it, most people keep all their menhagim already from the Zman on Erev Pesach. If you're one of those people who have a minig, then Erev Pesach is still lenient when it comes the night of Pesach, they're machmer, you should do whatever you do every Erev Pesach. The gebrachs for Achron Shel Pesach this year, that's an important point. Somebody raised it, when do we make the gebrachs for Achron Shel Pesach? It's pretty much the same as every year, only start making it when it's Shvi Shel Pesach on Shabbos. So you have to wait till Matzah Shabbos, and then you can start making the gebrachs Achar Shal Pesach. The only time it's different is when Achar Shal Pesach is on Shabbos, you can't prepare your Knedlich on Shabbos, so you're allowed to make it earlier. And this year we'll just make it on Matzah Shabbos. After you eat your challah, you want to eat your entire Shabbos Suda with Pesach food, you don't want to make new brachas. If it's all in the same room, even if you've done finish your challah and you didn't move anywhere, then yes, it's not a problem. You don't have to make new brachas. Somebody asked, can you say the Haggadah after Shkia? I should mention that. I mentioned earlier that on Shabbos Erev Pesach, we say after Mincha the Haggadah and say the Korban Pesach. The order is first Haggadah, then say the Korban Pesach. But if your Mincha is late, then you're better off doing say the Korban Pesach first. Because say the Korban Pesach has to be before sunset. If you bring a Korban Pesach after sunset, it's puzzle. So say the Korban Pesach, which is like the Korban Pesach, should be done before sunset. So if you started Mincha late, do first the say the Korban Pesach and then the Haggadah. The Haggadah, if you say after Shkia, it doesn't matter. You're going to say the Haggadah by night anyhow. Does the challah have to be on the table when you bench? Challah does not have to be on the table when you bench. That is not halacha. It says it's a good sign to leave challah on the table, but we might want to keep away from that simah bracha this year of keeping challah on the table when we bench, because that simah bracha could create a lot of heartaches for a lot of people. So the simah brachas this year, because we're trying to do a mitzvah and not have chametz in the house. But technically, yes, there is a special thing to keep challah on the table when you bench, but you don't have to. It does bring the simah bracha. If you're not doing it for the purpose of a mitzvah, it's not a problem. I'll just quickly see if there's any other questions that I missed here. That was pretty much all the questions that are relevant to the shiur. If I missed something, I could always be called, and most of the stuff is in the Pesach guide. I'll just make some closing remarks that we mentioned earlier that this is a Shabbos that is much more suitable for the Geula. This is a year that's much more suitable for the Geula, a year that Erev Pesach was on Shabbos. Remember the year that the Mishkan was established, Erev Pesach was on Shabbos, we mentioned in the beginning of this year. The year that Yidden came into Eretz Yisrael, Erev Pesach was on Shabbos. In Mitzvah this year, we're also going to be coming into Eretz Yisrael, and Erev Pesach is on Shabbos. In such a year, the Gemara says if we keep 2 Shabbosim properly, Mashiach comes. In such a year, Sfarim tell us we have 2 Shabbosim properly consecutively. What does that mean, 2 Shabbosim properly? We have Erev Pesach, which is Shabbos, and then we have Pesach. Pesach, the Torah calls the first day Pesach Shabbos. When we talk about counting Seder, it says Mimachras HaShabbos. We count Seder the day after Shabbos. So we have 2 Shabbosim, Shabbos Erev Pesach, and the Shabbos of Pesach, one after another, which brings Geula. Additionally, Sfarim tell us that Eliyahu Navi has a problem coming on Shabbos and Yom Tov because he doesn't want to mess up our Shabbos and Yom Tov. But in a Shabbos like this, you're not really messing everything up. You have to prepare everything before Shabbos. We're sleeping the whole Shabbos afternoon. He has no problem coming the same way that Rebbe had no problem bringing for us on this Shabbos. So that's another reason why it's suitable for Geula. The Rebbe specifically spoke about the fact that in a year that Pesach falls on Matzah Shabbos, and then you don't have the Korban Chagiga, which means you don't have to have the Pesach when you're full. Normally you eat the Korban Chagiga, so it should be full, and then you eat the Korban Pesach. When Pesach is on Erev Pesach is on Shabbos, you can't bring the Korban Chagiga on Shabbos. So your Pesach is not going to be eaten when you're full. That means our body has already been refined. Normally you have to work on our body, refine it, give it some Korban Chagiga before you have the Korban Pesach. In a year like this that represents our body is refined, that's going to be the way it's lost at love, the body will be totally refined, that the neshama will get its nourishment from the body. And a year like this is most mesugah for the geluyim of loss of love. Is a leibish helfer that we should be zeicha, that is going to be a mitzvah shem korban pesach this year without a korban chagiga in a beis hamikdash hashlishi. And then we'll have to have a new shiur. I don't know if it will be on Zoom. I'm not sure exactly what method the shiur will be. We'll have to have a new shiur about all the technical halachas of the Korban Pesach, which is slightly different this year because it's on Shabbos. So our memory from 1900 years ago is not going to help us for this kriyas. And Mitzvah Shem that will take place with Gula Mitzvah Shlema, and hopefully we'll all be zeicha to be on the Rebbe's Korban Pesach. It must be a very, very big behemoth. There will be enough for kazayas to every one of us. And Mitzvah Shem take it from Yad Mamash Yeshukech. And some closing remarks from Rabbi Dagan about the technical aspects of the shiur and how to get it.
It's a very useful and helpful share. We got many people wrote comments. They enjoyed it. If anyone would like a recording, it is available on my YouTube channel. If you don't have YouTube or you wish not to use YouTube, you could email me and I will send you, Mirz Hashem, a recording.
What's the email address?
My email address is I'll type it up, it'll be easier. It's ilyyyd@gmail.com. Okay. That's it. Everyone should have a kashering for Erev Pesach. It's say l'chaim tonight for Beis Nissen. And sei gesund.